A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. I'm Ritwika Gupta, and tonight we are celebrating National Small Industry Day. As one of India's most vital sectors, the textile industry spans both large mills and small-scale businesses, with nearly 80% of its capacity rooted in MSME clusters. In the first segment, I'll be in conversation with Richa Maheshwari, founder of Boito, who shares how India's rich textile heritage inspired her entrepreneurial journey. In the second segment, we put the spotlight on Sidhant Keshwani, founder and CEO of Libas, on the brand's evolution from a legacy ethnic wear label to a tech-enabled D2C powerhouse. Richa, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you, Ritwika. Thank you for inviting me to the show. The pleasure is all mine, honestly.
So firstly, tell us, from software to handlooms, really tell us about the turning point that led you to launch Boito. What was the inspiration and how has the journey been so far?
From debugging software, code at SAP to eventually landing myself in warp and weft of the handloom processes. It's still confusing for me, to be honest. Which is the warp, which is the weft. But I think what really worked for me was to indulge with these beautiful communities, mind-bending beauty, fantastic history, and the ability to kind of bring forward that history, which is so alive in our tradition, especially in these rural pockets. And Odisha being my home state, which I haven't really spent much time in growing up, it was a dream come true for me to find occupation within these little clusters and villages and forests and mountaintops, and spending time with these beautiful people in just creating this story where history meets a fashion-forward world, and being the bridge between the two. I think that's what kind of pushed me forward to begin with, because there was so much that I was seeing. I was able to absorb it all, but I also wanted to do something about it, given my background with storytelling, with making PowerPoint presentations to impress the globe over, with my role at SAP, which used to be that of a product manager's. I just wanted to kind of explore and experiment how much of justice I can do to this network of artisans and artist communities that are so alive and so beautiful in the state of Odisha.
Now, Richa, India's textile heritage is incredibly diverse but often underleveraged. How do you view its current standing in the global fashion economy?
Honestly, with our 5,000-year-old archive, with all these crafts, and literally like every rural pocket in India is thriving with handloom spun cotton and kalamkari and embroidery and just so much handwork, right? And the amount of employment opportunities that this can bring. I mean, of the 172 handloom traditions that exist, 72 are in the state of Odisha. And now to be able to sort of, tell that story and not just present ourselves as a crafty nation, but also present ourselves in respectable platforms and say that this is the possibility that we can achieve with grassroots level crafts.
Richa, so I understand that you have worked deeply with Odisha's weaver communities. What role do you think grassroots artisans can play in the future of India's textile industry or even the creative economy? And what do they need the most right now?
These artists and artisans are the creative economy of our country because like I said, we don't need separate layers. I mean, they're design thinkers. They haven't gone to any institute like an NIFT or an NIT, but what they have is knowledge from their forefathers. I feel like these artisans, when you say how they are the creative economy, if they're allowed to flourish, if it's now, for example, if somebody in Europe, is sitting and writing poetry, they have this free mind, there's so much beauty, there's gorgeousness around, you kind of, your brain is only functioning to write that poetry down and you're feeling it from within. And that's how the best art form comes out. And similarly, in our country, there are these poets and artists and artisans that are spread throughout these village, rural, landscapes.
Sure.
And if we were to allow them the cushion of, let's say, electricity, basic supplies of their homes being weatherproofed, it's not, work is not going to stop because there's a lot of rains, because it's too hot to be working outside, just access to maybe the internet. These are things that can really change the way art gets produced, because then you're ensuring that the talent
Sure.
is able to work on their strength areas and not have to worry about these other little details that kind
Absolutely.
of is digressing their progress.
And what, according to you, has been the impact of Make in India and other government initiatives on entrepreneurs like yourself?
I mean, these are absolutely fantastic initiatives, I think, but what really, from my own personal experience of being in this space, right? And I come from a very corporate, 17 years at SAP, and I've been very loyal to the company. In fact, I loved my job, and I was within these walls, and I was, churning out very interesting work. I mean, there's absolutely no dearth of good work, but at the end of the day, I have to be able to connect with people at the ground level. So it's only when I get out of that office and I reach that village landscape, or I go through the beauty of how sustainability is at its peak,
Sure.
even without any interference, because of the hyper-local culture that most of these communities exhibit. There is no need to travel. There is no need to import food from outside. There is no need to send packages outside. Even the clothes that they make, some of these rudimentary or rural communities actually still practice the art of making thread out of barks of trees that grow in their backyard.
Right.
So it's as beautiful and as nature-laden as that.
So Richa, given the current global climate of economic volatility, rising tariffs, shifting trade blocks, how has this impacted your access to raw materials, supply chain, sourcing, or even international reach?
Ritwika, honestly, we are in the space of trying to make all of these beautiful art and craft, talent and artisanal produce artworks and sculpted artworks available to a very global, appreciative audience. And this audience could be in any corner of this international stage. And therefore, yes, very rightly put, that we are getting impacted by export duties, import duties,
Sure.
transport issues. And so I think the route we have chosen at Boito is to go hyper-local. And there's also a beauty associated with that. So we kind of try and build everything within the community. It's almost like saying that, if I'm in Karnataka, I'm going to make a delicacy out of ingredients that grow in my garden, in my house, or that's found here. I'm not going to use any special ingredients from outside.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Boito is more than just a fashion label. It's a cultural revival project. But since this is a business show, we have to talk numbers. Tell us, how do you strike the balance between commercial viability and preserving heritage?
Great question again. And yes, of course, we need the commercial viability to be able to sustain livelihoods and to be able to pass that value down the chain, right? But at the same time, we're right now a very young company. We're still in the seed phase, and we're not funded in any way. But we're now heavily investing in building the brand equity, because I believe that we have very strong foundational roots. The tree can be tall and the fruits can be really sweet, and we're not in a rush. We are, we believe in this turtle philosophy, I would say, where a lot of our collections have the turtle motif. The turtle is representative of, the power user who can travel far, who has a long life, and is not in a hurry for anything, right? Who's absorbing and slowly kind of imbibing and always finds its way back home. So it's this rooted structure, rooted being. And I think Boito associates with that turtle significance. So we're not in a rush, but at the same time, we know and we are confident that what we are producing is value.
And finally, for entrepreneurs working with traditional crafts or in rural supply chains, what's that one piece of practical advice you'd offer, something you wish someone had told you earlier?
I would say reduce consumption and reduce consumption in the sense, literally, I've reduced my food intake. I don't mean that as a joke, because I've been traveling a lot in these villages and I can survive with one meal a day. Just be light and I feel like investing in connections is most important.
Right.
And coming from this corporate world again, I've had my mind full of timelines. How do I make that Trello board work? How do I ensure that there's a workflow in place, short-term timelines, we adhere to it because we have so many stakeholders who are looking at output, who are looking at numbers, and that's how we get measured, right? But that's, once I entered this space, I realized that no, that doesn't work because our communities, and I feel like they're far ahead of us in evolution. By us, I mean like the civilized part of us, right? Who are not in these village spaces, who are not kind of running after targets or timelines,
Sure.
who don't have that big ambition of making a big balance in their bank account or sending their child to the best school in the US. It's very different. It's very refreshing. Life is every day, literally. And so the ability to kind of just connect and be present in the moment.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Richa. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having us, Ritwika.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. In this segment, my colleague Hrishita Kumar brings you a conversation with Sidhant Keshwani, founder and CEO of Libas, who reflects on India's fashion economy and the pivotal role that MSMEs play in powering the textile sector. Listen in.
Hello Sidhant, thank you so much for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Hi Hrishita, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this interaction.
Now Libas has been India's leading ultra-fast fashion brand ever since 2014. Could you walk us through the brand's journey and how it has evolved over the years in terms of design, strategy and scale?
So, like most brands, we had a very humble start. We were solving not such a great problem, and things like ultra fast fashion, etc. and all were not in the mind, to be honest, in the early days. It was more of a very humble start where, we wanted to launch something, and we decided to launch a brand for workwear for kurtas, right? Kurtas for workwear. So that's how really the journey started. And 6 months, 1 year into the journey, we realized there were a lot of open gaps. We saw a lot of international brands spawning into India, bringing in new trends, fast fashion trends, like the Zaras and the H&Ms of the world. So we realized if there can be so much innovation in the Western wear space, why is there nobody doing such innovations in the Indian wear space as well? So that's what really gave birth to the idea of, building a fast fashion brand in the Indian wear space. That's what led to the birth of Libas, and yes, that's how really the journey started. So of course we started out as an e-commerce brand, and essentially from marketplaces, then went on to D2C, built our own mobile app, and now expanding offline. So we are almost now we're a full-fledged end-to-end omni-channel D2C brand.
Now, having been an active player in India's retail landscape, how do you view the sector's current momentum? What, in your opinion, are the key drivers behind this growth?
So today, India is at a cusp where, there's a lot of innovation, a lot of modernization happening. There is a huge shift, especially in the apparel space, which for the most part of the early years were, dominated by the unorganized market. People's preferences, especially the new age audiences with so much exposure of social media, are now, preferring to buy brands. So because that's what's led the birth of, so many new brands coming in. I mean, in your old experience, even if you look at it like 15 years back, 20 years back, there were hardly any brands from India. Mostly, people were shopping, the families were shopping from those local retailers, etc. But of course, with this whole millennial and the whole Gen Z wave coming in, with so much exposure that, trends that are probably going viral in the US, that same trend is exposed to somebody sitting in a tier 2, tier 3 town, and the willingness to buy is the same, right? And that's where brands like us come in, who want to kind of make sure that we are really fast in bringing those trends to the mass markets. And a lot of brands like us. So that's what's actually fueling the growth today. It's not just the supply, it's actually the demand which is creating supply. So that's what we feel that is changing in the Indian economy over the last 5 to 7 years.
Now, speaking about the Indian retail market, it is projected to surpass $1.6 trillion by 2030. What role do you think smaller businesses and D2C brands such like yours can play in shaping this transformation?
So of course there's a lot. I mean, today I think we are at that point where I think we've not even penetrated like 5% of the potential that the country has, and there is going to be a lot of problem that will be, that people will have to solve. Some brands will be solving for supply, some will be solving for demand, some will be solving for distribution. So I think it's going to be an amalgamation of how technology plays a role in kind of encouraging smaller businesses to solve different problems.
Now, since you mentioned tech, how is Libas leveraging digital transformation, especially through AI and automation, to foster innovation and offer personalized experiences?
I think today we are at a stage where within the business, I mean, AI is of course taking over a lot of smaller tasks that what earlier required a lot of human intervention. And while people say that AI is replacing humans and it's going to take over jobs, etc., I feel very differently about it. I feel today there is so much like innovation happening, and such smaller problems are being solved through AI. Of course, the bigger ones as well, but more importantly, the smaller ones where I think you need people to drive that engine as well, right? To build those logics, to kind of drive the innovation on the AI side. Like, I mean, if I start talking about, the kind of problems we've solved, like for example, it used to take hours earlier to, for us to distribute stock across multiple stores, multiple warehouses. There were people sitting on like heavy lakhs and lakhs of entries of Excel sheets. But today, everything is done with the click of a button through AI, right? Because the system automatically crunches all the numbers, all the sale data that, they have over the last 30 days, 45 days, and all the inventory that is currently existing. And, kind of crunching all those numbers within a few seconds and giving us an output of what needs to go in which store.
Now, Sidhant, quick commerce has been gaining significant traction. What are the key challenges and opportunities you foresee in this space? For instance, tell us about your partnership with Zepto and the value of enabling 10-minute fashion deliveries.
So we are very, very excited about quick commerce. We feel there is a shift in consumer behavior happening, which is here to stay. I think there was a wave of e-commerce about 10 years back, 12 years back, where people thought that nobody is going to buy clothes, online, right? But of course, it changed, and now today it's not a compulsion. It's not an option. It's a compulsion to be available on e-commerce for every brand. We feel that similar shift is happening now. People's patience level is now going down. The expectation of a 10-minute delivery, like today, if I say 4 days delivery, right, it's a curse. Back in the day, people didn't have a problem with that. So that habit has shifted now. So over the next 1 or 2 years, you will see that people are so impatient because of the ecosystem that has changed, that for any brand, it's not going to be an option to be a part of the quick commerce journey. It's going to be a compulsion. So we feel that we wanted to ride onto that wave a little early, and we wanted to learn and improve, etc. So that's our view about quick commerce. Of course, with fashion, it's going to take a lot of time, because fashion is a tough category, because you have so many different SKUs with so many different sizes. To replicate all that across so many dark stores is going to be a huge challenge. But I'm sure technology will evolve, and brands like will come in and create that kind of ecosystem where it becomes sustainable over the next year or two. And we're very confident. And I think we just started with Zepto about 2 to 3 months back, and we've gotten off to a terrific start, and the business is growing almost 30 to 40% month on month.
Well, I wish you good luck with that, Sidhant. Now, as a D2C Indian wear brand, what are some of the major consumer trends you have observed in recent years, and how does Libas stay ahead of the curve in such a dynamic market?
So certain consumer trends that we observed is, So being a fast fashion brand, we are always on the edge, right? I mean, it's the only core KRA as a brand that we have is to kind of keep on innovating as fast as we can, and we continue to do that, right? Some of the major trends, if I see today, like I said, this quick commerce trend is extremely, I think exploding in the market over the last few months, where a lot of new categories right now it's majorly, I think, that we see our core categories in the fashion space. So we see that changing. A lot of fast fashion brands are going to come in, especially with the festive season now coming in. This is actually the first full-fledged festive season that quick commerce is going to see, because last year, I think up till last year, there was no fashion in quick commerce during the festive season, and we expect to see a good surge during these 2-3 months of Raksha Bandhan, then followed by Navratri, Diwali, Durga Puja, etc., and all those things. So this is what we are seeing currently in terms of the trends that are going to pick up. And in fashion, of course, if you talk about fashion trends, we see a lot of fusion, a lot of modernization happening.
Now, looking ahead, what is the long-term vision for Libas? How do you plan to expand your presence across India and possibly in international markets?
So we have a very clear vision. I think we want Libas to be one of the first Indian wear fast fashion brands to be a global phenomena over the next few years. We feel the way that we are modernizing Indian wear, we don't want just Indians to be wearing Libas, globally, but also other communities as well. We feel that with the way we are fusing modern trends with the Indian trends, it's going to be a global phenomena over the next 3 to 4 years. We are already available through our website across the world, multiple countries, and we have plans to open stores as well over the next 3 to 4 years. So that's what the vision for Libas is.
Well, to wrap up, as India celebrates National Small Industry Day, let's talk about the textile sector, a space that is largely powered by MSMEs. How do you see their role in shaping the country's fashion economy?
So essentially, this day is celebrated to kind of, get the small businesses together, because, we normally celebrate a lot of large businesses, we celebrate a lot of consumers, but I think this is a great opportunity to kind of celebrate the businesses that are actually the backbone of the large businesses, and in fact, backbone of the economy as well. I feel that today as a brand, I can proudly say that the number of families and number of businesses that we work with and that we associate with, without them, I think to create anything is practically impossible. And I think it's a great effort even by the government, coming up with a lot of new schemes, etc., during this period to empower these small MSME and small businesses.
Well, that's great, Sidhant. Thank you for this insightful conversation. Thank you for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. We hope you enjoyed the conversations. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.